So we sent a letter out to a gentleman in West Virginia who also happened to be a lawyer. So we usually start with a lowball offer, and because we expect to negotiate and meet somewhere in the middle. So that property was worth, according to our estimates, around $20,000. We sent a letter for 4,000. The lawyer just accepted it. He didn't even negotiate. So we were like, wait, there's something wrong with it. This is too easy. There's something going on here. We need to figure this out. So we spent like next 2 days performing every possible due diligence. Everything came out clean. So we're like, well, maybe just the lawyer is tired of paying whatever $200 in taxes and he just wants to get rid of it, or maybe he needs cash or whatever the case may be. So we're like, all right, let's move forward. So we bought the land. We listed it for sale, 20K. We're like, well, we got lucky this time. A month later, we got a letter from the county, and they said, oh, by the way, the parcel that you just bought does not exist.
What if you could learn directly from the people who've already built what you're chasing? Welcome to Ingleside Reviews, Innovators Unveiled, where founders, creators, and leaders reveal the real strategies behind building brands that last. This is your masterclass in real-world innovation. And now your host, A.D. Edwards.
Welcome back to Ingleside Reviews, Innovators Unveiled, available on Bravehearts TV, on Roku, on Amazon Fire, and on YouTube, and also all major podcast platforms. I'm your host, A.D. Edwards, and today we're going beyond tactics into a deeper architecture of wealth, discipline, and the decision-making. My guest is Abi Asija, the entrepreneur behind Honest Wealth Builders, a man who has built his name around helping people turn land investing into something steady, scalable, and real. But this conversation is not just about land. It's about what happens when a person strips away hype, learns to trust principles over trends, and builds a business that can actually hold weight over time. We're talking about judgment, patience, risk, credibility, and the inner philosophy required to build something that lasts. If you've ever wondered what separates temporary wins from durable wealth, this conversation is for you. Abi, welcome to the show.
AD, that was a very solid introduction. Now I have to live up to that high bar that you have set for me.
Well, I was looking at your website. I read your book, and I have a lot of questions for you. However,
right.
I think it's important that people realize who they're listening to and watching. So first, tell the people who are just now discovering you, what should they know about your background?
So, came to the US for my higher education in 2007. I completed, graduated, and then I did 9 to 5, just like most of the international students do. And after 10 plus years of doing that, I got burnt out. I wanted to do something in real estate because my wife worked in affordable housing. So I always had conversations with her. But we were Dave Ramsey's fans and we did not want to take that. So that was a big issue because then we cannot do house flipping, we cannot do apartment flipping, we cannot do commercial properties because it requires a large initial investment
Right.
capital, which we did not have. So we looked for alternative methods of getting into real estate. We stumbled upon land investing. So you can buy vacant pieces of parcels, middle of nowhere. Think Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, desert parcels or desert squares, no utilities, access, dirt road access. You don't have paved roads. So middle of nowhere. And you could buy these parcels for like $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 and flip them for like 12, 15, 18. So 2 to 3x your money. At first, I didn't believe it. I was like, who's buying these? Like, what's the point? It's like middle of nowhere. You're gonna drive 2 hours outside the city to visit these for what? It doesn't make any sense. But other people were doing it, so I was like, all right, let's give it a try. So I sent a mailer out, like 300 letters to existing owners of these land, and most of them said no. They're like, yeah, we're not going to sell you our property. But two people did say yes. So I bought those two parcels. At the time, did not have a website, did not have any branding whatsoever. So we listed it on eBay because it was a big
Really?
thing. And in a couple of months, we sold it. We made like 2.5x star money. And we're like, huh, so it works. So now how do we do enough of these transactions so we can replace our
Mm-hmm.
salaries? So that's how the story got started. And that was 8 years ago. And today we have done 700 plus deals and built a 7-figure
That's
company.
an awesome story. Now, you say you immigrated here, you went to school. Why not take the path that so many take and focus on their area of expertise that they went to school for and just get a job? What made you decide to go into business for yourself?
That's a great question. So I was dealing with health issues. I was dealing with migraine issues, and it was triggered by light. So it prevented me from going to the office, and I had requested working from home. Now I got approval to work from home, but that was temporary, and it has an expiration date attached to it. So now I was really anxious because I was like, if I cannot figure this out before my expiration date, I might be out of job.
Yes.
So I had to find something that I can work from home remotely. And this was one of the vehicles that I found, and we tested it out and it worked. And then the problem became, all right, so I know this works, but how do we make it a repeatable
Right.
business? And well, how do we make it a business? Because at first we were just treating it as a side hustle. Then the conversation changed to, okay, how do we learn how to run a business? Because that's a completely different
Yes.
ball game compared to a nine to
Yes,
five.
definitely. Now, things eventually improved, got better, and you're very successful. But for our listeners and viewers, before things started working, what was the hardest about the early days?
So a lot of unknowns. So this is pre-chat GPT, right? So when you're buying land, it's unlike buying a house. With a house, you can hire a property inspector. They will pretty much spend 4 hours at the house, document every single thing wrong with the house, create a nice report, and give it to you for
Mhm.
$500 or $400,
Yes.
right? With land, there is no such thing. You have to complete all the due diligence yourself. A lot of people mistakenly assume your realtor will do the due diligence for you, which is not true at all. You are responsible. In the United States, your realtor is not only the realtor is not responsible, they don't even have most of them don't even have the education required to that kind of
Due diligence, yeah.
due diligence, because it's most of the based on my understanding, most of the education revolves around
Mhm.
houses, and land is such a niche product that you have to do your own homework. um, so that was the biggest challenge when we first started, because there were no books. There were some articles on the internet, but they were not comprehensive enough to be able to figure out every single factor that goes into trying to do your homework when buying land. Like things like people don't even think about it. Like things like wetland mitigation. No one thinks about it. No one even know what wetlands are. Like usually, like you can find wetlands in the desert. Like I
Right.
didn't know that when I first started. Those are called arroyos. I didn't know that. So you have to look at environmental contamination. You have to look at legal access in addition to physical access. I didn't know what a legal access was. These are literally like platted roads. You could have physical access to the property, but not have legal access, which means you cannot build on it,
You can't
because
you
for
have to
you to
access it to build on it.
exactly. No, no, no. You could have physical access. You could like drive your car up to that
Okay.
parcel, but it is possible that you don't have legal access, meaning you cannot request an address, you cannot extend
So it's
utilities to it,
useless.
right? It is useless unless you work with a surveyor, work with your neighbors, build easements and all those kind of things to get provision legal access, which is a huge deal. You have to like file lawsuits and go through the court system, and then you know
It's a lot. It's a lot to
it's
it. Yeah.
expensive.
So
Yeah.
when you first embarked upon this, you and your wife, you talked about these parcels in different states, and you say you weren't able to. You say you heard a lot of no's, which is normal. Then you heard two yeses. Did you actually go out there and physically inspect it even early on? Did you know to do that then?
No, so we never do that because it's economically it doesn't
Okay.
make sense. So at the time we were living in New York City, and we were buying parcels in Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, California. So it didn't make, and we're buying it for like $5,000, $6,000. So it didn't make sense to fly out, right, just to look at the parcel. So what we would do is hire a drone
Okay.
photographer on Craigslist, and the drone guy will go there, fly the drone, so you can see pretty much you have the overview of the land, so you can look at potential issues like if you have an encroachment or debris or something obviously
Yes.
wrong with it. Those are the things you can catch. Nowadays, you have Google Street View, right? Although that's not available everywhere, most of the places you can get Google
So,
Street
what
View.
are some of the biggest mistakes you made early on?
So one of the biggest mistakes was literally a write-off. So we sent a letter out to a gentleman in West Virginia who also happened to be a lawyer. So we usually start with a lowball offer, and because we expect to negotiate and meet somewhere in the middle. So that property was worth, according to our estimates, around $20,000. We sent a letter for 4,000, somewhere around there, and we expected to land somewhere around $8 to $10,000. So we at least 2x our money. So that's our minimum profit threshold. So we sent that letter out. The lawyer just accepted it. He didn't even negotiate. So we were
Wait,
like, wait,
this is
there's something
this
wrong
is
with
too
it.
easy.
This is too easy. There's something going on here. We need to figure this out. So we spend like next 2 days performing every possible due diligence checklist
Mhm.
item we could think of. We looked at access, environment issues, slope, grading, title issues, right? And nothing. Everything came out clean. So we're like, well, maybe just the lawyer is tired of paying whatever $200 in taxes and he just wants to get rid of it, or maybe he needs cash or whatever the case may be. So we're like, all right, let's move forward. So we bought the land. We listed it for sale, 20K. We're like, well, we got lucky this time. A month later, we got a letter from the county, and they said, "Oh, by the way, the parcel that you just bought does not exist."
Explain.
It's like,
Yes,
what? It's like, what do you mean it does not exist? I can see it in the GIS, right? In the county GIS system. I can see it's like a 4-acre parcel. It has access. What do you mean it does not exist? I'm looking at it. Like I called them. I was like, I'm looking at it on your website on the screen right now. Yeah, yeah, that's a mistake. That will be deleted soon. I was like,
What?
what? What do you mean? So apparently, this is like a county GIS auditor, and which audits and looks at existing parcels. So they were updating their systems, and this person found out that the surveyor who did the survey on this
Uh-huh.
property in the 1940s or whatever, long time back, they misread like east or west of this river or whatever. So we bought neighboring parcel, not the parcel we thought we bought. But the problem is that neighboring parcel has a house on it and they've been living there since the 70s. So we literally couldn't do anything about it. Like we could go to court and say, well, we own the neighboring parcel, but there are adverse possession laws and
Yes.
there so many things that would prevent us from taking ownership of it because they've been living there for like 40 years. We can't just kick them
Exactly.
out, right? So we had a lawyer consultation, and they said, yeah, you should just let it go because you're gonna spend like $20,000-$30,000 just fighting it in courts, and there's literally zero chance of you winning. So
So
we had to write it off.
so that was a big lesson, but that mistake, how did that change how you do business even today?
Right. So we'll look at existing surveys. I mean, obviously not all surveys are easy to comprehend and read, but if there's a survey on file, we try to make sense of it. This was pretty obvious. If you looked at the survey, you could kind of like understand that it was done incorrectly. Maybe we would have found out, but maybe not. But at least that's a step in our checklist now. Other things like I mentioned arroyos. Like one time we sold this parcel, 20 acres in New Mexico, beautiful views, mountain views. Um, we like 3x our money. Buyer is happy. We're happy. Everyone's happy. Then 3 months later, he comes back and says, "You guys are a scam." Like,
Yeah,
what do you
what
mean we're a scam? We just sold you 20-acre
yes.
parcel, which you haven't complained in the last 3 months, and now you're telling us we're a scam. So he said, "Well, you didn't disclose wetlands on the property." I was like, "What are you talking about? In New Mexico, it's a desert. It's not wet. It's
Right.
all dry." He's like, "Well, buddy, look up arroyos. You look up what arroyos are." So we looked it up. So apparently, these are like dry, it's like dry like riverbeds or whatever, where when it like rains, it kind of like
It's
fills up really
like a
quickly.
oasis.
Yeah, kind of like that. And then it's not, and the water just like gushes through. It's not safe. You're not supposed to be around
Oh.
them when it's raining. So apparently there were like three different arroyos going through the properties, through that 20-acre parcel. So we were like embarrassed that we didn't know.
Right.
We're done like 20 deals by now. We should know at least what an arroyo
Exactly.
is. Uh, so he was like very upset. So we're like, all right, fine. How about we just refund you your money? You give us the property back. So he said, well, let me think about it for a couple of days. And then 2 days later, he called back. He's like, all right, I, I talked to a surveyor. There's still plenty of land I can build on. So, and it was a good price. So I'll keep
Okay.
it. So, we got lucky there. But those are the things, we learn these lessons by making
Yes.
mistakes, and that kind of improved our checklist, right? And then at certain point after we did like 300 of these, we started with a checklist of 30 items that we
Mhm.
looked at, and then we kind of like documented it in a blog on our website because we like, well, help out the community. And then we kept on adding to it. And at one point, it became like 70 pointers. And we were like, even the blog post was so huge, they won't even load because
Yes,
it like
because yeah,
kept spinning.
it's working, it's working,
It's
it's
so
working.
huge. So we're like, well, actually, this seems to be more like a book. We should just like extract and create a book out of it. So my wife, like, extracted it, made it a book, and
And
and over time, we kept on updating it, adding more and more because like when you have different scenarios, you have different due diligence items you need to look at. For example, if you're buying land to farm versus buying land to homestead versus buying land to build a tiny house versus buying land to build office building, they have like different checklists, right? Even though you're just buying
so
vacant land,
now you started off
right?
with 30 checklists, and what's the average checklist for a property now, a land property?
So in totality, if you were to buy the book that my wife wrote and I contributed to it, it has more than
Mhm.
200 pointers. Like literally covers every possible scenario. It's called Land Investing
And
Mistakes.
we're gonna we're
The
gonna
name
talk
of the
more
book.
about that book a little later. But before we get to that, I remember you telling me that you had got into this business because you wanted to have the freedom from your job. So at what point
Right.
did you know it was time to leave your day job?
Well, so it was a very calculated decision. It was very logical. So most of the land we sell is on owner financing, meaning 80% of the properties that we sell, people don't want to pay outright because a lot of people are on fixed incomes, social security and VA benefits, military, pension. So a lot of scenarios where people have fixed income coming in, and that's the reason why most of this land gets sold on a owner financing. So it was a simple math for us, very logical. When our terms income, owner financing terms income, replaces or
Or
is
matches?
greater
Okay.
than the monthly income coming in from my wife's salary, we will she will quit because she was making less money than I was. Then she was the first to quit. And then once we replaced mine, I mean, we waited a little bit too long because we're like, I just
Be
want to like
sure. You want to
build
be
more of
sure.
the
Yeah, yeah.
savings. Yeah, yeah. So, and then I quit as well. But in retrospect, if I would have quit earlier, we would have been much further along because, business can grow like this, but job savings only
Of
grows very
course.
slowly.
Of course. So you got into the land aspect of real estate because of the low entry points for these
Yes.
land deals. But land is not as popular as brick and mortar real estate. So my question is, in the beginning, was it hard to find your niche within land investing? Because you said that there wasn't a lot of information available as it is today. Like we could get your book, and that'll help us a great deal. You didn't have your book. So
Right.
why did you stuck with that and versus going back and getting like a property like most people would do? Because people that's getting into real estate, I'm thinking at least 80% out here that's listening, they don't think land, they think building. So help us out to see why it's an advantage.
Right. Once again, it came down to a deep hatred towards debt. Just like absolutely wanted to avoid debt at all costs because it's just like so ingrained in us by Dave Ramsey that debt is bad. So we kind of like use that as our constraint, as our threshold that we're not gonna go in debt. We're just gonna stick to our savings. So we kept on redeploying. So we basically redeployed all the capital back into the
Mhm.
business. So we didn't take any income because we just wanted to grow the business quickly so we can, my wife can quit the job. And that was one aspect of it, why we didn't want to go anywhere else because we didn't want to take debt. The second thing was working remotely because even when you buy a house, it is an expensive purchase. So you would want to visit it. Like I wouldn't be comfortable buying a $300,000 house and not visit it
Right.
in person, right? So you start visiting it, and I was dealing with migraine issues. So I was like, I wanted to find something. So it was a very constrained box for me that it has to be work from home and I don't have to go
Right.
in debt. So those were the two strict parameters. And that's why I stuck with land, even though there were like a lot of different shiny
Mhm.
objects, right? Airbnb, crypto, and this and that, right? So that kind of forced me to stay focused and disciplined.
So when you started to purchase more and more property, land property, there's a lot of different options out there. How do you figure out where you actually wanted to focus?
Hmm, that's a very nuanced question. I like it. So, there are multiple paths of making money with land. Some people hate doing these $4,000, $5,000 deals. They want to go to like a $50,000 or $100,000 deal because then even though you don't 2x or 2.5x your money, like if you're gonna buy land for 100, it's very unlikely you're going to sell it for
Right.
250, right? But if you buy it for 5, selling for
Not
12
unheard
is
of.
is is
Uh,
yeah, not unheard of. So some people, they go after absolute amounts, right? So they'll be like, well, I'm going to buy for 100 and sell it for 130,
Okay.
right? Because they produce 30K in profit, and I have to do like 3 deals to produce 30K, or even 4 deals to produce
Mhm.
30K. So I'm doing more work, and they're doing less work, but they're doing more targeted mailing. They have to be more careful, even more careful in due diligence, and their buyer pool is much smaller than
Mhm.
mine,
Yes.
right? So those are the pros and cons you have to weigh. Which do you want to do more work and have more predictable revenue, or are you okay with choppy or lumpy
Mhm.
returns? Like maybe you don't make anything for 4 months and then you get a $150,000 check. Are you okay with that kind of business? Or would you like more predictable? We went with more predictable because that's how we first started. And then at that point, we hired virtual assistants and we had all these subscriptions and memberships. So we had monthly bills to pay, right? So we didn't want a lumpy business because our monthly bills are
You wanted steady
accruing,
income.
right?
Yes.
Exactly.
So, what helped you recognize what was worth pursuing and what wasn't? Because you're doing a lot of surveying and you got the drones and you're looking at all this property in all these different places. How did you figure out, okay, this is not worth me pursuing? This is worth something I should pursue when it comes to land?
Right. At the end of the day, it all comes down to numbers. So, like for example, there are properties in HOAs that people absolutely despise. Absolutely, they don't want to do anything with HOAs, right? They don't want to pay extra money. They don't want to deal with extra laws and rules. Um, so when we look at HOA properties, we know our buyer pool goes from like 100 to like
Okay.
10, right? Because it shrinks that much. But but if we can get a good deal, right? If it's a $20,000 property, and usually if there was no HOA, we will go up to $10,000, right? To at least 2x our money. But if it's HOA, maybe we'll offer 5 and try to sell it for
Mm-hmm.
12, right? So it all comes down to math. Um, and if you can dispose, right? If there's a buyer pool who will find this
Uh-huh.
attractive, because if someone, like, there are obviously tiny percentage of people, maybe like say 7% of people in the land buying pool that are looking for HOA properties because they want to enjoy the amenities, they like that it's gated and whatnot, right? Um, but they need to find a banger deal to be able to, buy land, because clearly it has nothing on it, so they'll have to invest more money. But if it's a good enough deal, they'll take
So
it.
this business that you're in, it's unique in the sense that when people usually buy items, there's this phrase they got, kick the tires. They go look at the car, they go look at this, they look under the hood, they look at a building, they look at the piping, they look at the electrical. With your aspect of the business, it's all data. So it's there's no tire kicking. So how do you realize what data matters and what data does not matter?
Yeah, I mean, came from doing more deals from experience. So stuff like grading, soil, like these things, like utilities, these things matter more and more as the property becomes more expensive, right? So if it's like Desert Square, people are, you think about what your end buyer will use it for. They're usually using it for recreational purposes, maybe bringing their ATVs and running through, like, just like having fun, or maybe they want to park their RV, maybe they want to build like a storage shed to store their tools, right? So you have to kind of like think of the highest and best use for this
Mhm.
property amongst your buyer pool, right? So if you're buying a piece of land in Florida, you're going to look at certain things differently when compared to buying a piece of land in Arizona, right? Because Florida, it might be half an acre lot, right, which needs to have a soil percolation test that has passed, right? So they can put
Mhm.
septic in it because sewer is not available, right? So those are the things become more important. But on Arizona side, you are selling mostly to recreational buyers. They don't care about these things. So those things become less important. So it's kind of becomes more nuanced depending on where the land is and what the potential use case your potential buyer pool will use
So
it
how did
for.
you figure out where to find the data that you needed?
Well, data is readily available these days. There are softwares pretty much, they're like 20 different GIS-based
Mhm.
softwares that you can buy subscription from to look at all sorts of data. So there's Land ID, which we use, land.id. It's a big tool that pretty much every land-based realtor uses. So that's the one that we bought subscription for. And then there are also like county-based tools, like pretty much every county in the US. Uh, they have GIS-based tools available on their county website for free. So if you don't want to spend money on land ID subscription, you can just,
Go to the county.
look at free county tools.
So when you started doing more and more deals, what did scaling actually require from you?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a juicy question because scaling is a beast. It's like a completely different beast than just doing real estate deals. That's like, the literally the reason I wrote my book. We were talking about my wife's
Mhm.
book before, and the reason why I wrote my book, The Land Business, because that was the like literally you have to change the way you think about real estate deals. Like you have to think of it like a business. I'll give you a very specific example. Um, so, and this is based on the principle that the amount of money a business makes is equal to the amount of goodwill you have in the marketplace multiplied by the number of offers you make to your customers. And I'll explain what that means. So, say, 80, you and me, Abi, we live in the same town,
Okay.
right? Small town. So AD opens his cafe shop and Abi opens his cafe shop,
Okay.
right? So we have our competing cafe shops in the same area, right? So when a customer goes to your coffee shop and they say, AD, I would like to buy a small cappuccino. You as part of the conversation, you're like, well, you should try the large. We have a promotion going on. You'll save some money. And then we have these pastries you need to try. We also have croissants. We have this mug, which is like, shake proof. We have this foam art thing on, or you can put it on your top of your coffee. Like you're having this conversation, and as part of this conversation, you're talking more about your products and you're making more offers to the customers, right? So that's how you're conducting your cafe business, right? So when they come to Abi's coffee shop, they say, "Oh, I would like a small cappuccino." I serve it to them, and then they go home, right? So you in a typical conversation with a customer, you're making 7 offers and I, in my coffee shop, I'm making
Mm.
just one, the coffee,
Okay.
right? You're with me, right? So you can imagine if there are 100 people coming to your coffee shop and 100 people coming to my coffee shop in a day, at the end of the year, if we look at revenue numbers from your coffee shop versus revenue numbers from my coffee shop, you will have a ridiculous amount more you would have made because you were making like 6, 7 offers per customer and they were buying more
Right.
stuff, right? Even if not everyone bought everything you offered, but the fact that more people are buying more stuff would like 3x, 4x, 5x the revenue. I might have made 100K at the end of the year and you might have made
Right.
500K, right? So number of offers is critical, right? And I will tie it back to land in a second. But it's crucial that I'm able to explain this. Otherwise, it's not going to make sense what I'm about to say
Okay.
next. So number of offers is crucial if you want to make more money, right? But you also need goodwill in the marketplace, right? If people are coming to AD's coffee shop and AD doesn't have goodwill in the marketplace. The AD doesn't, is not going to community events. He doesn't have like educational content. People don't know who he is. When you make more offers, people will be
To
unlikely,
accept them.
less likely to
Yes.
take those offer. because you don't have goodwill. But if you were like, people know who you are, know, like, and trust you, when you make more offers and you say, well, these coffee beans just came from Costa Rica, you should try them out, they're like really popular. They will be like, well, we know AD, we like him, we trust him. So if he's saying people like these coffee beans, I'm going to try these, right? So goodwill is a prerequisite when you make a lot of offers, right? So those are the two factors in any business where if you do both of those, build goodwill and make a lot of offers, your business, no one can stop it. It's going to grow, right? So when we learned this principle in our land business, that's when we started seeing the revenue growth. Because to build goodwill, we started doing, a lot of initiatives. Like we now we go live every day on
Mhm.
YouTube. We do free strategy calls with customer. We offer free strategy calls. Like lawyers offer free
Yes.
consultations. Same thing. Free land strategy calls with us. Anyone can book. People book it all the time, and then half the time they don't show up. But that's a different problem. But yeah, so we started building goodwill like that. We started doing virtual tours for our property, on like Land ID, Google Earth, county maps. We will show everything up front. So people started trusting us there. We will disclose this property has this, it does not have
Uh-huh.
electricity, but it has water, it doesn't have sewer, but it has been parked. All the information will disclose upfront, as opposed to our competitors who are not doing any of this, and they will have language like buyer to do their own due
Hmm.
diligence, as opposed to us
Have
providing
you
everything.
seen any of these other companies change because of what you all were doing?
The land space is huge. I don't like most land investors don't even. I would doubt they don't they even pay attention to what we do, because it's a huge marketplace. We're talking about 3,000 plus counties, right? And like millions and millions of parcels, and we have sold 700. So we're like not even a drop in the bucket. Um, I think maybe couple people who follow us might have borrowed some of the things we do, but like we're like virtually unknown because it's
Huge,
such a
huge.
huge,
Yeah, but
massive
what
pool.
you're saying
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. Now that's a way of scaling. You make more offers. You're upfront. Because what can make people what's the word I'm looking for? There's a little reticence, a little hesitation. Is there a lack of familiarity to that space? But if you tell people more and more information, it could give them a little bit of ease, and they'll be more likely to engage in business in that area. Now, how did you scale without
Yeah.
losing control of the business? Because sometimes with scaling, things can get out of hand. So how were you able to do that?
Yeah. So scaling, once again, so there are two ways to scale, right? Two ways to make more money, right? One is you can spend more money on marketing, spend more money on advertising, and acquire more
Right.
customers, right? That's like more typical way most people try to scale. And that seems like the obvious way of scaling, right? But there's a secret second way that a lot of people don't know about, but only like the very successful people know, which is to make existing customers more valuable. So, two ways to make more money. You can get more customers. The second way is you can make existing customers more
Retain
valuable,
customers that you
which
already have.
means exactly. So, which means instead of spending 400, $500 in ads acquiring a brand new customer, if you were to go back to your existing buyer pool, which you've already sold to in the past, and you maintain good relationships with them, and you already have goodwill built with them because you did right by them,
Yes.
right? Then you can try to sell those properties to your existing customer base, which means you don't have to spend that 500,
Marketing.
$600 just to acquire one
Right.
customer, right? So cost to acquire customer, goes to zero if you sell to existing buyers, right? Which is a lot of people don't think about, because the common advice in the real estate world, I'm sure you have already heard this, is like, oh, you want to talk as little, you want to interact as little as possible. Hire a company to deal with the people. I don't want to deal with the people,
I've heard that.
right?
I've
Common
heard that. Yeah.
advice. I do dealing with people equal to headache. That's the common advice. But if you flip that, if you realize the math behind why these relationships are important, it kind of like flips it. So you have to talk to these people. You have to be nice to them. You have to build a relationship. You have to help them go out of your way, because the LTV, lifetime value of these customers, becomes exponentially high because they keep coming
Right.
back to you, because they're like literally there are literally like 3 companies we can go to because they're the one we know takes care of the customer. The rest of them are like trash because they just care about
Right.
profits,
Right.
right? And counterintuitively, the more you take care of for your customers, the more your profits go up.
So another scaling question. What part of scaling was harder than people would expect?
Maintaining relationships and building goodwill. Okay, I will. This is a funny anecdote. I think you might enjoy this. So I was on a podcast. This was a live podcast with live audience,
Okay.
right? And I did this whole spiel of like, you have to maintain goodwill. You have to make number of offers. So there was this guy in the chat. He was like, Abi, I totally agree with what you're saying. 100%. Cannot disagree with what you're saying. Now tell us, how do I build goodwill as quickly as possible? And I was like, sir, you have completely missed the point.
You gotta build the relationships. You have to build. Yeah. You have to
Yes.
nurture. You have to
Yeah.
nurture.
Right. The pregnancy takes
Yeah.
9 months. You
You
cannot speed it
rush
up.
the gestation period.
Exactly. It takes 9 months. It has to take 9 months, right? And if you think about it from a competition perspective, think about it like that. If you build this goodwill over 3 years, right, and then you have this massive goodwill in the marketplace, if you find a shortcut to build this same 3 years worth of you showing up daily in like 3 days, someone new comes in 3 days and builds the same amount of goodwill, you essentially neutralized all the hard work
Yeah.
that you put in, right? So it's a good
Yes.
thing that you cannot build goodwill in 3 days,
Yeah.
right? So you have to change the perspective. So going back to your question, what's the hardest thing? You have to keep showing up, and it's not easy, right? It takes, as you already know, maintaining relationships is hard work. Like we call them on their birthdays, and they're like, at this point, every day is a
Right.
birthday.
So
Someone's birthday, pretty much every day. Every day we're calling happy birthday. We're having the same conversation, but then we also do check-ins. We'll say, well, how's it going? How's the property that you already have bought from us? How is it coming
Mhm.
along? And then, are you in the market for buying? Like, and then it leads to
Right.
natural. Are you looking for more stuff, right? So every customer interaction is an opportunity to make another offer, but you need to provide value
Yes.
first.
You've done more than 700 deals. Were you naturally good at sales?
No, I suck at sales. Well, I did not know anything about sales. I'm coming from computer
Okay.
science, so I had to learn so much. My wife is naturally, she's naturally kind of good at building empathy. She didn't have any sales training either, so she would do more of the sales, and I would do more of the back end. But over time, as I do mentorship now, so I have to do my own sales calls. So I was forced to
You,
learn and get better at it, but I was
you,
not
you learned
natural
out
at
of
it at all.
necessity. What
Exactly.
would you say has sales taught you anything about people?
Oh, that how long do you have? So here's I'm gonna talk about 2 things, right? Because these are like not common. When I started doing sales training, most of the sales training was about objection handling. They'll be like, well, if you're on a call, someone says, I don't have the money. How do you handle it? Or if someone says, oh, I need to check with my wife.
Yeah.
How do you handle it? Or if someone says, I need to think about it. That's
Yeah.
my favorite. I need to think about it. It's like, well, let's think about it right now. But people are like, no, I need to think about it. So how do you handle that, right? So most of the sales training is about objection handling. But in our business, what we realized, there were two more variables that were even, like, I would say 10 times more critical than objection handling. And those two variables are speed and availability. So speed, like when someone goes to buy land, they don't just click on one listing and says request more information, right? Or is this available? Like Facebook, right? You have seen that?
Yes.
Is this available, right? They don't just do it on one listing. They go on like, is this available? Is this available? Is this available? Like 20 different times of like 20 different listings. So if you are responding to that person within, say, 24 hours, and your competition is responding to them within 5 minutes, who do you think has the
The
higher
5
chance
minutes. The
of closing the
5-minute guy.
sale,
Yes.
right? So now our speed to lead is 1 minute.
Okay.
So as soon as we had to hire additional people just to meet this metric because it's hard, right? You asked me what's hard about scaling. Stuff
Yeah.
like this, it's hard, right? Because you get like 30 leads, 40 leads per day. Now you're responding to them like, especially hard when you have like 5 leads come in at the same time. How
Definitely.
do
Definitely.
right? So you have to like build systems of which one takes priority, right? So speed is one of the things which is like moves the needle on the sales side a lot. People have no idea how much it impacts. The second is availability. So before we would be like, well, we're gonna keep few hours open in the afternoon to do closing. Like we have setter closer model, right? Someone in the offshore will set it, will be like appointment setting, and then we'll close in the afternoon, right? So we would have few hours open in the afternoon, 1 to 4, and the rest of the time we're doing our own stuff. And we realized there are people who are not available in the afternoons. Maybe they work night shifts. Maybe they have like odd hours, or maybe they have a small business and so by blocking this narrow window for them to book all the calls just because it was convenient for us was a huge
Right.
mistake, because the more availability you
The more
open up, the
opportunities.
more the chances the customer, books a call. And we were trying to, we learned this thing from a sales training that you don't want to look overly available. You don't want to, because that implies you don't have enough business. It's complete garbage advice,
Yeah.
right? Because the more you are available, the more opportunity you have, the person who will actually book and show up, right? And the more you are making it easier for the customer,
Yes.
right? Because that's the whole job as a business owner, to build goodwill in the marketplace and make things easy for
Yes.
people,
Yes.
right? So now we opened 15-minute slots, so that like 4x'd, right? If you just have hourly slots versus 15-minute slots, that's 4x'd your availability for
Right.
the day.
Right.
So stuff like that are very important.
What have you learned from doing so many deals that you could never have learned from a book or from a course?
Volume defeats luck.
Yes.
Volume, when you do a lot of volume, you are like forced to get better. It like forces experience, right? So just going back to that example, I'm doing like $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 deals, and my competition is doing $100,000 deal, right? Who do you think runs into more corner cases and weird
You would,
scenarios, right?
because and you're gaining more experience than the other guy as well. So you know how to handle yourself in different situations, different scenarios, different questions that come up. Definitely. Definitely. So
Yeah.
those are things that you can't learn from a book. You will learn once you get some principles from a book, from a course, but once you get out there and start doing it more and more, that's when you really start to take off. So looking
Yeah.
back, what has this business taught you about judgment?
Judgment. Tell me more. What's the intention
For
behind the question?
example, when you got into this business of land real estate, you really have
Mhm.
to trust. You're in New York and you're making deals in Arizona. You have to be able to
Right.
have good judgment when you talk to people.
Mm.
When you, for example, the instance where you made a purchase but the property actually didn't exist.
Mm.
You made a choice to buy it. So as you all these deals, this is based on the 700 deals. You can judge things pretty quicker than I'm sure you could have in the past. So what has it taught you about the judgment? Because you still don't go out and visit your properties, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I wish I had an intelligent answer for this, but I would I would just say that it's just like by doing more of these, with trial and error, you do get better at making judgment,
Mhm.
right? Because you are making better decisions and you see patterns, right? Based on the previous transactions you have done. To give you an example, lot of when you're running a business like this, a lot of times people will try to scam you, like especially on the
Uh-huh.
buy side. If you send letters, or you have like a form on our website where, like, well, if you have land you want to sell, just submit the for a quote, right?
Yes.
Submit your details and we'll give you a quote on how much we can offer. A lot of times people will just try to scam us. They'll be like, send us land they don't own, and they say, well, it's a $20,000 land. They'll be like, well, just give me five. I have an emergency. I need it right away. And then we will like start the paperwork, and then they will like when it's time to notarize stuff, they like do fake notary stamps. Like a lot of stuff
Yeah.
like this happens. And when it happens enough times, you start to see patterns,
Mhm.
right? So, and that helps you with judgment as you do more and more
Okay.
deals.
I can see, I see how that works. Once again, like you said earlier, the volume. The more you do it, the better you can
Yes.
see things. You talk a lot about
Yeah.
goodwill. When did you realize trust is not just a personal value, but a business asset as well?
Hmm. Trust versus goodwill. You're gonna like this story, AD. So, I give this example in my book where I have my accountant. My accountant has done land-based taxes for like tax returns for like 30, 40 years. He's like, no one has done more tax returns than he has for the land business. So I always go to him to get my taxes done because I 100% trust him that he will do my taxes
Mhm.
correctly. But I never recommend him to anyone. People have asked me on several occasions, or do you have like a tax accountant you recommend? I was like, nope,
And why is
I don't.
this?
And why is that? Because my accountant has close to zero goodwill in the marketplace and towards me, because every time I reach out to him, I have to follow up like 4 times, 5 times before I hear back. If I hear back, send an email, no response. Follow up, follow up, follow up. Then maybe I get a response. Leave voicemails, voicemail, voicemail. Then maybe I get a response, right? Because he's busy. He doesn't want to hire more people. Doesn't want to deal with customer
Mhm.
service because he already knows that he's in demand, right? So you can have trust in the marketplace, but also no goodwill. And if you don't have goodwill, then you're not getting repeat customers. You're not getting
Right.
referrals,
Right.
right? You might be able to make a living and sustain based on your existing customer base,
You're
but
not
you're not going to
growing.
be getting more.
You're not
Exactly.
growing. Interesting. I like that.
So trust and goodwill, two very different things. Trust you can have. Goodwill, so how do I define goodwill? The positive feeling that you have towards a brand or a person,
Yes.
right? So if you don't have that positive feeling, you're not going to send other people
So
their
like
way.
in the restaurant industry, tons of restaurants make the same type of food, but you may go to one place because the way they make you feel, they
Mm,
welcome you there, the way that, yeah,
exactly.
okay. I like that. I like
You
that.
got it. You got it.
What do
Yes.
customers reveal to you that numbers alone never can reveal?
Hmm. I would say customers, lot of it happened during COVID. I'll give you a very specific example. During COVID, there were a lot of customers who were like struggling to make
Mm-hmm.
payments, right? And at that time, we had to make a decision. We were like, either we can force a default. We're like, well, clearly you're not making payments. We're gonna initiate the foreclosure process. So that was one option for us. And the second option was to be empathetic, to work with them, because we know that if we work with them, our LTV, lifetime value per customer, will go up. But in the short term, that means we'll have to take a hit on the numbers because our revenue for the year will go
Mm-hmm.
down. But we know for sure, not for sure, but like fairly certain that our LTV,
Yes.
lifetime value per customer, will go up because that customer will not
Of
forget
course
us
not.
because we help them during the time of
When
their
you had
need,
every right
right?
to foreclose. Yeah.
Yes, right. So to answer your question, right? Sometimes you have to take the short-term hit for building long-term goodwill, long-term value with your customer base, and your customer base will reward you over the long
Got
term.
it. Got it. Now, in your book, you focus on timeless principles. Why was it
Hmm.
important for you to teach principles instead of just tactics?
Yeah. So in real estate, how-to books get outdated very quickly, right? Because I'll be like, well, I'm using this software to do this software to do that, right? Because everything is software, and then you have like AI
Yeah.
disruptions, and then you have a better software, right? So you have to constantly either keep the book
Right.
updated or just give up and say, well, this was written in 2026. So if you're reading in 2050, good luck. Right. So I wanted to build something timeless where, and the other, well, there's also a legacy play. I wanted, if my kids decide, they're very young right now. So if they ever decide they want to take over the business, I wanted to document these principles because as you're aware, as you get more successful, these principles kind of like become obvious to you and you don't think of it as like big deal. You're like, oh, well, of course everyone knows
But they
goodwill is
don't.
important, which is not true.
Yes.
It is you're right. So unless you document it right then and there, right, and it's part of the book, so it's almost like a blog post for
Mm-hmm.
me. I keep on like refreshing
Yes.
it. I keep on like adding, subtracting. Like I keep on like, I was like, I have no plans of writing another book. Writing one book is so painful. I I have no intentions of writing another
But
one. But
you keep
I will
adding to the
keep
yes.
yeah,
Yes.
keep updating this one, so that it becomes, even though it might not be a masterpiece right now, which I think it already is, but that's a
You
biased
know what?
opinion.
But that's good though. It's a real interesting book. It's got me interested in some questions for you later on because I'm thinking
Yeah,
I've never looked at land. I've always looked at
yeah,
the properties. And so I
yeah,
was really
yeah,
intrigued. Here's a final question for you. If someone
yeah.
reads your book and remembers just one lesson, Abby, what do you hope
Hmm.
stays with them?
Right. So the lesson would be around those two principles, which are the amount of money. If you want to make more money, you need to provide goodwill in the marketplace, make more offers, and there are only two ways to make more money. One is to get more customers, spend more on marketing, and the second is to make your existing customers more valuable. Because if you just remember those two core principles, it's very hard to not make
Yeah.
money. And there's one more thing is there are four different types of offers. Like we talked about the number making a lot of offers, but there's also like four different types of offers, and every business should be making all
What are
four
these?
offers because if you're not, that you're leaving money on the table. So what are these? So if you go back to the coffee shop so that everyone can understand, um, attraction offer, upsell offer, downsell offer, and continuity offer. So what's an attraction offer? So we go back to our coffee shop, right? Um, say we know for sure that between 12 and 2 p.m. every day, there's a slowdown because people go on lunch, people are doing whatever. They're not in the mood for coffee. 12 to 2 p.m., right? So we do the analysis. This is what we find. So we're like, all right, so we need to increase traffic in the store between 12 to 2 p.m. So we put a sign out saying, if you buy anything in the store between 12 and 2 p.m., you get 25% off, right? So people who otherwise wouldn't come into
Are
the store
attracted.
will come in to avail of this
Yes.
offer because
It's
it's
attractive. Yeah,
it's an
they
attractive
attract. Yeah.
offer, right? So that's an example of attraction offer. So if you're not making attraction offer, you're losing money on the table because you're not attracting more customers than you usually would. So that's the attraction offer. Second one is upsell. We already talked about it, right? Person comes in for coffee. We're like, well, would you like to try
Right.
croissant? Would you like to try coffee beans? Would you like to try this? Would you like to try that? That's an upsell offer. Downsell offer, if you make an expensive upsell offer, like coffee beans just right out of
Mhm.
Costa Rica, extremely rare. You can get them for like $99, and the person says, it's too much. 99 is too much. So you kind of like downsell. Well, would you like a smaller pack? It's only
Right.
$49.
Okay.
So that would be a downsell offer. And the fourth is continuity offer. So that would be like a membership or a subscription. Oh, would you like to join our AD Cafe Club? Because, we do like after events, we send you coupons. You become part of our community. We
Right.
have like discussions. We build custom stuff,
I'm
blah, blah,
smiling
blah, right?
because that's what you see a lot of times when you go online and you may let's say sign up for some kind of software service, and they'll say, well, it's this much a month, but if you get it for a year, that's the continuity. It's a little
Yeah.
cheaper, so it's like,
Yeah.
I might as well do it for a year. I gotta save. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
got it. So that's a perfect example of a continuity offer. So if you're running a business, you always have to think about these four types of offers, because if you're lacking even one of them, you're losing money on the table or leaving money on the table.
Excellent. Do you happen to have a copy of your book with you? Can you
Yeah.
please hold it
So
up?
I
Tell
made-
everyone how they could get your book. Yes, The Land Business.
Yeah. So you can check it out on Amazon.com. Just released like a month back. And it's free on Kindle Unlimited if you have the subscription.
Excellent. Abi, this is a wonderful conversation because beneath the business model, what really came through was the philosophy. The real wealth is built with clarity, trust, patience, and the discipline to keep showing up where work is no longer exciting, but it still matters, So thank you for bringing not just your strategy, but your perspective, your principles, and the deeper thinking behind what you built. And to everyone watching and listening, if this conversation challenged you to think differently about wealth, business, and the kind of life you're building, make sure you stay connected with us. This is Ingleside Reviews, Innovators Unveiled. We're available on Bravehearts TV, on Roku, on Amazon Fire, on YouTube, and on all major podcast platforms. Until next time, keep innovating, keep creating, and never stop unveiling the innovator in you. I'm your host, A.D. Edwards, signing off.
This has been Ingleside Reviews, Innovators Unveiled, hosted by A.D. Edwards. For more conversations with innovators and business professionals, follow the show on your favorite podcast app, subscribe on YouTube, watch on the Bravehearts TV network, and visit innovatorsunveiled.com to learn more about the show and upcoming guests.